Okay, today we're going to be learning how to escape the metal ranks based on the patterns I see in each rank. So for bronze, we've got quite a lot to work on. Um, so pretty much everything can be improved here. Aim, game sense, positioning, timing, pretty much anything. Choose anything to get good at, and work on that is what I would ad, advise for you. Get a better PC. If you're at 15 frames per second, I don't blame you for being in bronze. Aim trainer. That's Vaxta is the code for my favorite aim trainer. But there's plenty out there. You can Google them. There's a bug right now with Season 1 where the old codes don't work. So if Vaxta doesn't work, you'll have to Google one on your own. But maybe they fixed it by now, so I don't know. And content creators and streamers. Watch them. Those are Grandmaster players. We got Emong and Flats here. They're very good. Watch them and mimic them. Moving on to silver. So with silvers, I see usually they've gotten good at something. Like what I said before with bronzes, get good at one thing, aim, positioning, decisions, whatever. Usually silvers are good at one thing. And that's great. But there's always more to work on. But what I see with silvers is that they often don't actually know every ability in the game, including passives. So, like for example, they don't know that Widow has a Venom Mine, or that Mauga heals himself with his cardiac overdrive. So pretty much priority number one if you're stuck in silver is to learn every part of the game. Another thing I see in silver is that they'll wait until like the end of the game to use their ult, which is a problem because it never gets used in the mid fight. So we got to be more on top of using our ults. Generally, I think the reason people wait to do their ults is because they want their ult to be really good and perfect. They want a 5-man blade or a 5-man blossom. When that's not really realistic in every game. It's actually very unlikely to get a scenario where you're going to have a 5-man blossom in even a game. And so if we're talking about Death Blossom, I usually use Death Blossom on like one person or two. If I just like dive their support backline and just ult them, and that's more than enough to win the fight. So just don't be afraid to press your Qs. More aim training always helps if you have the time for it. And another problem I see in silver, specifically tank players, is they're very scared of approaching the point. And there was a problem in Overwatch 1 specifically when I was in Gold and Plat. Orisa's shield would trick people into staying behind it and not being aggressive with it. And it's going to be the same thing with Domina's shield now, is that the stationary shield is a problem for people because Orisa is a comfort pick for a lot of people because she doesn't really require that much mechanical skill, and she has a lot of abilities that just absorb damage, which is useful for the low ranks when positioning is a problem. So someone like Orisa is a comfort pick because of those things, and Orisa has a perk, which I hate, that gives her shield on her E. And it's a good perk unless you're using it wrong. And by using it wrong, I mean if you're attacking as Orisa, for example. I see a lot of Orisas just put their shield in the choke and just stand there and shoot. And that is a big problem. We don't want to be standing in the choke, and because we want to be moving forward to the point. Or we want to be moving forward to an aggressive position or taking map control or something. And that's a problem. And I think it's because we're scared of, making the wrong decision, or scared of walking out of the safety of your shield. And the solution to that is putting your shield a little further and then walking to it, and then using jiggle peeking your shield, kind of when if you're in a duel. So generally avoid just slapping your shield on the choke. Sometimes it has its uses, putting in the choke, but I would, if you're in silver and you're a tank player, specifically your Researcher Domina, think about, where would the shield go that would both help me defensively and let me push forward. So that's something to think about. Moving on to gold. So gold is famously the most inconsistent rank. You can have, an amazing game and just pop off, kill the entire enemy team, and then the next game you're just getting rolled all game. It's a thing. It happens to every gold player, and obviously happens in every rank, but gold I find especially. And what I have here is your best day versus your worst day. So on your worst day, if you're playing a game, if your gameplay is like worthy of maybe bronze, then that's obviously a bad game. And on your best day, you're playing, somewhat worthy of diamond. And you're probably correct that, how you played that one game on your best day is worthy of diamond. But you're only as good as your average day. And your average will end up being in gold because of this. And what I want to hammer home is making your worst days less bad. So we want to bring up the bottom. So our average is now raised up to potentially platinum on the right side. It is also good to make your best days better, but I wouldn't worry about that right now. Let's figure out what our problems are first. So my advice to doing that is, if you're getting rolled in a game, if you're having a really bad game, and you're just getting sniped by Widow every game, for example, let's figure out why we're getting sniped by Widow. And that could be, say you're an Ana, and you just get blasted out of spawn every time you walk out. Let's try a different thing. If the Widow's just staring at the main spawn door, maybe go onto a different spawn door. And if that doesn't work, maybe switch heroes to something that can get out of spawn a little easier, like a Moira or something. And there's a lot of memes about the Moira players, but she's useful. If you need to switch to her, you need to switch to her, and that's fine. You could also go Lucio and just blast your way out of spawn. You could even go Mizuki at this point and just play cover. Use your shift, go behind cover really quick, something like that. Just figure out why you're getting rolled and do something about it. And you might still get rolled, and that's fine. But we're just trying to make it so we're getting rolled less. And you might lose that game. You might win, but just try to make that bad day slightly less bad. Moving on to plat. So plat, things get a little more interesting. So in plat, everyone's aim is probably pretty okay, but the major problem in plat is pretty much always positioning and timing. And I wrote there engagement and ult timing. And I put a Winston here jumping in because a big problem with tank players in plat is diving too early or inappropriately. And what I mean by that is, say you died first as tank the last fight, and you go in, and one of your DPS that survived got a pick, and that would be like, whoa, we can go in and we can do that 4v. I can jump in because it's only 4 people, but it's actually it's actually just a 4v1 now, and you just obliterated yourself because you jumped in against 4 people and instantly died. So even though your teammate got a pick, you gotta look around, see who's with you, and when you dive, dive intelligently. If you dive like, right on top of 4 people that are all looking at you, it's probably not going to work out so well. But if you dive onto, someone who's alone, it's going to work a lot better, and someone who's like not getting helped by their team very much. Ult timing is also a big thing. Winston can be an example here again. A lot of Winstons in Platinum that I see they'll go in and they'll maybe get a pick, but their entire team dies behind them, and then they'll get low, and then they'll press Q, go into primal, full heal themselves, and then they'll die, because even though you have 1300 health or whatever it is, you still have 5 people staring at you, and 1000 health isn't really all that much when you have a whole team looking at you. And that would be an example of a bad ult timing, because there's no team with you to help you out. So just think about that. A better timing for the monkey ult would be, actually in that particular fight, I'd rather you just die, like stand still. Like if your entire team dies behind you, and you're deciding whether to ult and feed or die and also feed, I'd rather you just feed instead of ult and feed. So just die, stand still, respawn with your team, and then you can go in and you can actually open with primal. You can do a dive, do a very aggressive dive, because that's what Winston does, with your team, or at least with your team adjacent, if they can see you and see what's going on. You do that, they get you low, and then you primal, and that gets your health back. Your team is there to help you, and they can kind of clean up for you. So that would be an example of a good ult timing. There's also a lot of panic ults that happen in Plat, and every rank below that, or actually every rank, people panic ult. But Plat, it's a real problem, because you will start to get punished for panic ulting, like the Genji thing. Like if you're Genji at half health and your entire team died, probably not a good idea to blade. So just think about that. Plat is usually the discovery of the high ground. So I have Anakin and Obi-Wan here. The diamond on the high ground and the gold on the low ground. It really is the difference between diamonds and golds, is if you use the high ground or not. And like an example is Numbani, both attacking and defense. If you're just standing on point on defense, you're probably going to lose, unless the other team just walks up main and low ground and you guys just have a brawl on point. Then it's a 50-50. But if the attacking team decides to go high ground, then you're just fishing a barrel, sitting on point like that. On high ground, you have options, you have angles. They have to use an ability to get to you. It's just much harder to deal with someone who's using high ground than someone who isn't using high ground. So please use high ground. If there's an opportunity to use it, 99% of the time you should use it. And this also is a good time to mention, the objective of the game is usually not the objective, it's actually map control. So in BJJ they say position before submission. So you get a good position and then you submit them. And it's the same thing in Overwatch. You get the good position, let's say on Gibraltar. You get that high ground on first point. Once you control that high ground, the defending team is much less dangerous to you. So, you can have 1 or 2 people kind of sit on cart pretty safely, because, when no one's on high ground, or there's no enemies on high ground, and the cart is pretty safe because of that. So map control first, position before submission. Remember that. And in plat, you also want to start using off angles. So I have a diagram here: enemy team, team, and you. So let's say you are playing on run, for example. You're a flanker, and your team in blue is, I don't know, playing a Reinhardt comp or something like that. And you know the enemy team is all there, all 5 of them, and they're staring at your Reinhardt. It's pretty easy to imagine that your Reinhardt shield is gonna be just getting blasted by 5 people. And what you can do as a DPS is you can actually take an off angle. You can take a high ground off to the right or the left. You can make it so they have to do something about you. You don't necessarily have to kill anything, but you just being in a different position than your team will pull attention away from your tank, and it'll enable your team to walk forward while they turn to give you some attention. So that's always something to think of as well. If you want a good example of flankers doing this, every flanker in top 500 does a really good job at this. So any streamer who primarily plays DPS, like Genji, will do this really, really well. And you can just think about their positioning. You can also watch it from a support perspective. If you watch ML7, champion support, I like him because his positioning is spectacular. And you also get to see how he deals with people diving on him, or how the enemy flankers take off angles and stuff like that. That's all I got. We're not going to talk about Diamond. So I hope you guys learned something from this. So thank you for watching.